Today's dramatic escalation in the Trump administration's conflict with judges. A protest getting underway in Milwaukee, Wisconsin this hour after FBI agents arrested a county circuit judge this morning. The Justice Department accusing Judge Hannah Duggan of helping an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest after he appeared in her courtroom last week. This appears to be the first time the Trump administration has charged a sitting local official with obstructing immigration enforcement, at least that we know of.
That's her picture up on the screen, Hannah Duggan, who is now in custody. You cannot obstruct a criminal case, and really, shame on her.
That, of course, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, on Fox News touting the judge's arrest after the FBI director, Kash Patel, first broke the news in a post on the platform formerly known as Twitter. It was later deleted. Patel wrote this, quote, "We believe Judge Duggan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest." Let's get straight to CNN's Whitney Wild. She is live outside the federal courthouse in Milwaukee. Whitney, what more are you learning about this arrest?
These unsealed court documents give quite a bit of detail about what federal law enforcement thinks led up to this, what they felt was their obligation to eventually arrest this judge. They say this all stemmed from an incident that happened April 18th when Flores Ruiz was due in court in front of Judge Hannah Duggan. He was there to appear on battery charges. Through the course of the morning, Judge Duggan learned that federal agents were there to arrest him. There were about 6 federal agents there from multiple agencies, the FBI, DEA, and ICE among them. According to the complaint, when Judge Duggan learned that they were there to arrest Flores Ruiz, she became very upset. She actually pulled some of those agents aside and had a phone call with the chief judge in which the chief judge insisted that any arrests would have to take place in the public area of the courthouse. And this is crucial, Casey, because what they say happened next was that Judge Duggan went into her courtroom and as Flores Ruiz and his attorney were set to leave through the public door, the door that would have led to the hallway, she, according to the complaint, said, "Wait, come with me," and then ushered them through the jury door, which took them to a private area of the courthouse. That made it obviously much more difficult for these agents to arrest Flores Ruiz. They were able eventually through the course of the morning to arrest him, but what the FBI makes clear in that complaint is that they believe that was an obstruction of justice, and so they've moved forward with this arrest. And while, as you point out, it is a major escalation, it is not altogether surprising given that they have said from the outset that they are prepared to bring the full force of the law against anyone. That includes elected state and local officials if they perceive them as blocking their duty to, as they say, enforce these immigration laws across the country, Casey.
All right, Whitney Wild for us outside that courthouse in Milwaukee, where, of course, you can see and hear people gathering in reaction to what we have seen. Whitney, thank you very much. I want to go now to CNN law enforcement analyst, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Sir, thanks so much for being on the show today. This played out pretty unusually in that we first learned about it in a post from the FBI director himself that was later deleted. Can you just give us some insight and help us understand how unusual it is or isn't for federal officials to do something like this, and what your view is of the role that the FBI played in what we know happened here?
Well, sure, Casey. And this is an absolutely bizarre situation on many levels, not the least of which has been the Department of Justice's crowing about this arrest in light of it, in the aftermath of its exposure today. A department that used to pride itself on letting the legal filings speak for themselves and not actively getting out on the media and essentially convicting someone in the court of public opinion. But nevertheless, the FBI's involvement here is also somewhat odd. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that the Bureau has been dragged into immigration and enforcement by this administration in a way that it has never seen, and in fact has avoided in administrations past. The FBI received authority to conduct immigration enforcement not long after September 11th, but there was a deliberate decision by FBI leadership not to authorize agents to actually use that authority, and instead officially deferred all immigration matters to DHS. FBI agents aren't trained on immigration law. They aren't used to executing arrests without federal court warrants, things like that. So it's something that is beyond their purview. Today, you see them doing it routinely and ending up in situations like this. And I should also add that by spending their time enforcing immigration laws, there's a lot of other things, FBI things, that agents are not doing because they've been drawn away from those priorities.
Andy, will you stand by for me? I want to come back to you kind of throughout this broader panel conversation, because, of course, this all means that the political battleground state of Wisconsin is now the backdrop for this highly unusual and aggressive legal action against this judge from the Trump administration. Of course, the Trump administration led by a president who has been free to express his feelings, hostility towards the judiciary.
Radical left judges, radical left lunatic judges.
He's a nasty judge.
Extreme far left judges.
All right, joining our panel, CNN crime and justice correspondent Caitlin Polantz, CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, CNN political commentator Jamal Simmons, and CNN senior political commentator and the Republican strategist David Urban. Welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being here. Caitlin Polantz, I want to start with you on our latest reporting around this, because this, of course, a very sensitive area for state and local officials. Their interactions with the federal government, of course, always highly scrutinized as a general matter. Clearly, this judge is in a difficult position now. What do we know about what her plans are to try to fight back against this, and what the administration's next moves are?
Well, they have a case, and that case is going to go on in court. She hasn't entered a pleading yet. She was released after appearance. But one of the things that I think should really be highlighted here is not, I mean, the case against the judge, it's unusual, but it's not unprecedented. There has been a case like this before in 2019 during the first Trump administration, charging a judge in Massachusetts who was accused of something very similar, trying to usher someone out of that courtroom as ICE officials were waiting for that defendant. In that case, that ended up being resolved. Those charges were dropped in the Biden administration against that judge in Massachusetts, but she ended up cutting a deal. So it was a legitimate case there as well. We don't know how this will go for Judge Dugan, but the thing I really want to highlight here is how this was done today. The Attorney General wants to make an example of this, and boy, are they, Casey. I mean, it's not just the Attorney General, Tom Homan, coming out and saying, doesn't matter who you are, we'll go after you, we'll charge you criminally with obstruction. They apprehended this judge on courthouse grounds at 8:30 this morning and then held her in a holding facility at the federal courthouse until her initial appearance, which happened mid-morning in Milwaukee on these federal charges. It's an obstruction charge, yes, but often people who are upstanding members of the community who aren't a risk of flight, who aren't a danger to the community, they're not put in a cell. They were contacted and said, come in later whenever you want to face your charges when you negotiate this. And so that situation, the apprehending of the judge and then using the federal government's spotlight to point at this case, it just shows you how much of a hard line the administration wants to take here.
Everything Caitlin said and Andy McCabe said before her about the way this is being handled, the way the arrest is being handled, the way that DOJ is publicizing this is spot on and correct. However, looking at the complaint, let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say law enforcement shows up at a building with an arrest warrant. They're looking for person A. Person B then says, hey, there's a secret escape door out back. I'm going to show you the way, and then ushers that person out the back door. That is textbook obstruction. That said, I think there's a fair debate to be had that I guess you two will be having in a moment about whether prosecutors should have brought this case. And let me tell you, I've been both state and federal side. If I was at DOJ and someone brought me this case on these facts, I would say, I get it. I get that robotically this is a crime, but I don't know that this is the right move here. Can't we just call up the state courthouse, see if there's some way we can work this out with the judiciary? How are we going to make arrests? I did this. Where are we going to make arrests? What are the protocols we're going to agree on? Jumping right, not everything that's a crime must be indicted or charged by complaint. And so I think this is a crime on paper, but there's a very fair debate about whether it should have been charged.
Right. Well, prosecutors make choices, right?
Exactly.
An
exactly.
allocation of resources.